War Sovereign Soaring the Heavens, Chapter 787. Practically at the instant Duan Lingtian thought this, Feng Wei moved. Swoosh. In the next moment, the head of the young man from the Darku dynasty that was measured to be 40 split open suddenly, causing fresh blood to spray out, and he plunged down without any signs of life. Bang! The young man's corpse hadn't even descended on the combat arena when it was completely destroyed by the extremely violet wings emitted from Feng Wei's palm, and it transformed into powder that covered the sky and vanished into thin air as if it had fused completely into the heavens and the earth. All of this happened in the blink of an eye, and it was swift to the point that only Sword 13 and Saber 5 were able to react to it. After a short moment, the young geniuses of the various dynasties reacted, and they couldn't help but go pale. There was also a portion that frowned and felt the members of Skywolf Fort were truly too overbearing. Isn't it just because he's 40 years old? Wouldn't it be over by giving him slight punishment and removing his qualification to participate in the martial competition of the 10 dynasties? Did it require going so far as to kill him? This was the thoughts of the various young geniuses and the representatives of the 10 dynasties. Even though the expression of the Darku dynasty's representative was unsightly, he dared be angry but didn't dare voice it out. Not to mention this wasn't the Darku dynasty. Even if this was the Darku dynasty, he could only stand aside obediently and put on an act of humbleness before an expert like Feng Wei. Lord Vice Fort Master, I was wrong. I shouldn't have concealed my true age. Right when most people couldn't bear the sight of the scene from before, a person walked out from the young geniuses of Darming dynasty, and he knelt in midair with his head lowered as his body shivered. Vice Fort Masters, please spare my life. Please spare my life. This young man that walked out from the Darming dynasty's group begged endlessly for mercy. For a time, he'd successfully moved the attention of everyone present, causing the gazes of every present to descend onto him in unison. It's him. Duan Lingtian noticed with a single glance that this person was one of the people who instantly went pale when Ningqian mentioned the age-measuring pearl. There seems to be another 3 people. Duan Lingtian's gaze flashed past the young geniuses from the other 3 dynasties. Practically at the exact same time, one of the young geniuses dashed out from each of those 3 dynasties and similarly knelt in midair, and he knelt before the 2 vice fort masters of Skywolf Fort with a shivering body as he pleaded for mercy with a sorrowful voice. Lord Vice Fort Master, spare my life. 4 people knelt in midair and ceaseless kowtowed as they begged for mercy without end. If they knelt on the ground, they'd probably have already caused their skulls to split open and bleed from their kowtowing. They knew clearly in their heart that if they didn't stand out right now, they would similarly be exposed when it was their turn to have their age measured by the age-measuring pearl. They would be exposed sooner or later, so it was better to admit their mistakes earlier, and perhaps they would be able to plead for a chance at survival. Obviously, the scene of Feng Wei's move to kill the young man from the Darku dynasty that was already 40 years old and greatly terrified them. Meanwhile, the representatives of the 4 dynasties including the Darming dynasty went grim, as they'd never imagined that an incident like this would occur. Besides the Darku dynasty, there were actually people that were at the age of 40 and didn't conform to the requirements of Skywolf Fort when holding the martial competition of the 10 dynasties concealed within amongst the young geniuses of their respective dynasties. Humph. Feng Wei grunted coldly. Since all of you are standing here today, you undoubtedly had the intention of deceiving our Skywolf Fort. I probably don't have to tell all of you what's the consequence for deceiving our Skywolf Fort, right? Killing intent that shot into the sky rose on Feng Wei's body as he spoke. Lord Vice Fort Master, spare me. Lord Vice Fort Master, spare me. The bodies of the 4 young men from different dynasties started trembling intensely, and all of them were terrified to the point their countenance went ghastly pale and their voices trembled. Vice Fort Master Feng. The representative of Darming dynasty looked at Feng Wei with the intention of pleasing on the young man's behalf. But he hadn't finished speaking when he was terrified to the point of not daring to continue speaking by Feng Wei's icy cold gaze that swept over. What? You, the representative of Darming dynasty, wants to bear this responsibility. Feng Wei smiled spuriously as he looked at the representative of Darming dynasty, and it was one of the former 2 great void transformation stage experts of the Zhao clan, Elder Qian. The reason it was said to be former was because the other void transformation stage expert of the Zhao clan had been killed in the Ice Flame Pavilion at the Darming dynasty's capital by Sword 13 a few months ago. If you want to bear this responsibility, I'll allow you to use your life to exchange for his. As he finished speaking, Feng Wei's eyes revealed frightful killing intent, and his terrifying aura swept out to press onto Elder Qian to the point it caused Elder Qian's expression to go pale. Right when the gazes of most people had moved onto Elder Qian, a fierce piercing howl briefly sounded out. In the next moment, everyone saw that a line of blood had appeared out on thin air on the throat of the young man from Darming dynasty that was kneeling in midair. The line of blood ceaselessly grew thicker before spraying out dazzling and resplendent blood, whereas, the young man's body was completely devoid of signs of life as it plunged down from midair. Whoosh! Right at this moment, a figure flashed out from the group of Darming dynasty young geniuses and slapped out with his palm to blast the young man's corpse into powder. After a short moment, the young man that stood in the distance had become the center of attention. Most importantly, there were actually 40 ancient horned dragon silhouettes in the sky above the young man, and such a phenomenon was only drawn into existence by the origin energy that exploded out from within his body. 3rd level of the void interpretation stage. Duan Lingtian couldn't help but reveal an astonished expression when he saw this scene. On the other hand, Feng Wei, who had his aura targeted at Elder Qian, couldn't help but be slightly moved when he looked at the young man. Of course, besides the young man's cultivation, the reason he was moved was mostly because of how resolutely the young man acted. This resoluteness obtained the resonance and praise of Feng Wei from the bottom of his heart. In next to no time, Feng Wei looked at the young man and asked, "What's your name?" "Lu Yang." The young man returned to the group of young geniuses from Darming dynasty before nodding to Feng Wei, and from the beginning until the end, there wasn't a slightest discernible change in his expression. Lu Yang, the crown prince of the Darming dynasty's imperial family and one of the 2 great young experts of the Darming dynasty's younger generation. His strength was obviously far above Zhao Weiyi, who was equally famous to him. Lu Yang? Good, very good. Are you willing to become my personal disciple? Feng Wei revealed a rare and brilliant smile, and he stared at Lu Yang with a burning gaze as he asked with a smile. Personal disciple? The personal disciple of the Skywolf Fort's Vice Fort Master? A single sentence from Feng Wei had caused the eyes of all the remaining 8 young geniuses from Darming dynasty to go red. We can obtain the acknowledgement of the Vice Fort Master of Skywolf Fort just by killing that person that concealed his own age. Besides that, we can even become his personal disciple? All the 8 young geniuses of Darming dynasty, including Zhao Weiyi, felt a wave of regret in their hearts. They regretted why they didn't make a move to kill that fellow earlier. Otherwise, the person that became the personal disciple of Vice Fort Master Feng would be them and not the Crown Prince, Lu Yang. Master. After feeling shocked from Feng Wei taking the initiative to take him as a disciple, Lu Yang hurriedly knelt down and kowtowed 3 times to Feng Wei as the formality when taking Feng Wei as his master. Haha. Good, good. Fen Wei laughed loudly with delight, and then he asked, "My good disciple, what concepts have you comprehended?" "Master, disciple has already comprehended the concepts of wind, fire, and lightning." Lu Yong spoke respectfully. "Wind, fire, and lightning." Fen Wei nodded, and with a raise of his hand, 3 concept fragments had appeared in his hand before directly throwing it to Lu Yong. These 3 concept fragments are respectively a 4th level wind concept fragment, a 3rd level fire concept fragment, and a 3rd level lightning concept fragment. Take it as Master's gift to you. "Thank you, Master." Lu Yong stretched out his hands in delight to receive the 3 concept fragments. If one were to look carefully, one would notice that Lu Yong's hands were trembling intensely, and it was trembling from excitement. The face of the group of young geniuses of Darming dynasty whose eyes had gone red from envy earlier had flushed red now, and their gazes descended onto the other 3 young men who'd concealed their true ages. For a time, the origin energy on their bodies surged, and they were prepared to attack those 3 people at any moment. But unfortunately, they were too late. Swoosh. 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 The young geniuses from the dynasties that those 3 young men who knelt in midair belonged to copied Lu Yong and pounced towards their former companion when they saw Lu Yong had so easily taken the Vice Fort Master of Skywolf Fort as master and obtained 3 concept fragments that caused envy in the hearts of others. Instantly, the 3 young men that knelt in midair hadn't even reacted when they were blasted into powder by a ground of people and completely vanished in this world. Mad. All of them have gone mad. Feng Tianwu's beautiful face went slightly pale when she saw this scene. Never had she imagined that these people would be so cruel and heartless, and they were willing to kill their former companions for the sake of personal benefit. This is the heart of man. Duan Lingtian's expression was calm, and he seemed to not be surprised by the scene before him. His gaze descended onto Lu Yong instead. Lu Yong was a 3rd level void interpretation stage martial artist and the crown prince of Darming dynasty, and the resoluteness of Lu Yong's action caused Duan Lingtian to be unable to help but feel apprehensive. Earlier, when the attention of most people was drawn by the representative of the Darming dynasty, Lu Yong had actually made a move to kill the young man at the first possible moment. Not only did his actions help the representative of the Darming dynasty, it also revealed the resoluteness he handled matters with, causing the Vice Fort Master of Skywolf Fort, Fen Wei, to take a fancy to him and even take him as a personal disciple. Needless to say, Lu Yong was the biggest winner up to this point. Not only had he obtained formidable backing, he'd even obtained 3 concept fragments that others dreamt of, and even Duan Lingtian couldn't help but be moved by those 3 concept fragments. As for the representatives and young geniuses of the various dynasties, if the gazes they looked at Lu Yong with now could be transformed into sharp blades, then they'd probably have sliced Lu Yong into pieces since long ago. Fen Wei, congratulations on taking a good disciple. Ning Ken looked at Fen Wei and smiled. Thank you, martial uncle. Fen Wei was respectful and reverent when facing Ning Ken. Ning Ken is the martial uncle of Fen Wei. Duan Lingtian was slightly surprised. I hope you enjoy the video. Don't forget like, share, subscribe to channels.